believe it, yeah. See it, say it, believe it, yeah. See it, say it, believe it, yeah. See it.
Thank you for tuning in. We are Tristan and Michael, and you are listening to Fuse, transparent conversations for marriage, family, and relationships. We invite you to join us as we discuss perspectives that are thought about but not talked about. So tell your friends and family to check us out and connect with us on social media. Join the conversation by emailing us at info@fusedmarriages.com. All right, Michael, let's jump right into it. What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about something that I think a lot of people go through.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to talk about is when people end up being together for some time. It could be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 20 years, but they can't figure out, okay, what happened to this person?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Right. What happened to this person where, you know what, I thought I knew them, but I don't. Or at least I discovered something new about them that, you know what, how did I miss that? And it could be something just minor, it could be something major, but it often happens where, you know what, you see couples, you know, married for 20 years and they're like, man, how'd they change? Or how did she change?
Yeah.
And what happened with that? So we want to dig into a little bit about, okay, why does that happen? You know, when does it happen? And hopefully how do you kind of prevent that from happening?
Okay, so this is about knowing your spouse.
That's correct. So knowing your spouse, and really I was trying to rephrase that and say, you know what, how do you know your spouse, or how much do you know your spouse?
Okay.
And I think that's something we're all challenged with, whatever, you know, whenever we're trying to really build a relationship with somebody. And really it's an ongoing thing, right? It doesn't necessarily stop after the first year, after the first 5 years, even after 10 years or 20 years.
It never stops.
Yeah, we're constantly changing.
Right.
So one of the things, I guess, where I was watching a Facebook show, it's called The Red Table. A lot of y'all may be familiar with it. It's the Jada Pickett show, Pickett Smith. Yep, Red Table Talk. And she was saying that she just discovered she didn't know Will Smith. And we have a little clip about that. We want to kind of intro this particular segment with that clip. Okay. Let's check it out.
Check it out.
I have to be honest. I think one of the things that I realize is that I don't know Will at all.
You really feel that?
Let me tell you, I feel like there's a layer that you get to, right? Life gets busy and you create these stories in your head and then you hold on to these stories, and that is your idea of your partner. But that's not who your partner is.
Wow.
Right?
So
going through the process of having to dissolve all the stories and all of the ideas of Will that I've built around those stories.
So yeah, so I mean, if you heard her say, you know what, she built an idea around who she thought Will was, right? And then something along the way, something triggered it. He may have did something. I'm not sure. You know, hey, he might have been, you know, eating cornflakes one day, and then one next day, you know, he's not. He's doing something different, drinking smoothies. Sound like my story. Okay,
That's you.
That's me. But that happens, right? You know what? So something shifted, and she might have missed it. I don't know if he talked about it or not, or kind of he might have just started doing something different.
Well, I think one of the things that she says too is prior to this clip is spending more time around him. Right now, as we're recording this, we're just kind of in this quarantine season in the United States. And she says that being around him this much, this consistently, she's noticing things about him that she did not know before. And I think that can happen to a lot of us. We get busy in our, in our lives, and they end up becoming, and maybe this is not her story, but this might be somebody else's, it might be ours, where you end up spending a lot of time doing stuff, and then when it's spouse time, they're my weekend husband, or they're my husband or they're my wife from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Right.
That's where they fit. And then when they're outside of that, it's unusual. You start noticing, like, I didn't know that they did that at lunchtime, or I didn't know because I'm taking the kids to school when they're, working out. I didn't realize that this is what they did. And you start picking up and observing things, and you can observe so many new things that you begin to think, like, why didn't I know this stuff?
Right.
Why didn't I have wind? Why wasn't I privy to this?
Yeah, I guess what I heard you say is that time matters, right? And it's the right amount of time that matters the most, right? We can have almost physical time around each other, but not have mental and spiritual time around each other.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And somebody could, miss something about what a person is feeling, thinking, or maybe wanting to do. And if that happens over a long period of time, you may discover, okay, hold on, I don't know what happened. And I've seen people end up almost, getting divorced or breaking down a relationship to the level where, it can't be fixed because they just don't know each other anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I agree. I think that happens often. I think one of the dangers is assuming that you know. I think that is one of the biggest dangers to a marriage is, well, I know them. I know what they like. I know who they are. And you might have known them during that day because we all evolve, right? We evolve every day. I'm getting to know different versions of myself every day. You're getting to know different versions of yourself every day. So how can we assume that we know you today or that I know you today? I knew the yesterday version of you, but something could have happened today. You could have seen something on the news. It's the truth. You might have seen something in the news that triggered something or made you feel a certain way, or something. You might have gotten in a car accident, or something might have happened with a manager, or you overheard something, or you read something, or you listened to something that changed you just a little bit. And if I assume that I know you, but I'm not taking into account any changes that might have happened, then I don't really know you. And there are so many minor changes, micro changes that can happen until there's this big chasm between us. And I knew a version of you from our wedding day and not the version of you 10 years in,
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. At least what I'm thinking is like, man, we're constantly changing as individuals.
Right.
Hopefully most of us are. Most of us aren't static and trying to say, okay, I've arrived. Right. Hopefully most of us aren't saying that.
Yeah.
A lot of us are still in the process of trying to become something or trying to achieve something or trying to grow into something. And ultimately, like I'm trying to grow into the best husband. You're trying to grow into the greatest wife. And neither one of us are there yet. So we're always changing and to try to get to that place. And like you said, I mean, over time, it's the little bitty increments that are changing. Hopefully we're not drifting the wrong way. Right. Hopefully the waves and the drifts are going the right way in a positive direction. We're not going against where we should be doing. But we are changing. And I like the mind. In my mind, I see a boat and I see two of them drifting in the ocean, and they can be drifting in a direction, but be drifting apart. Right. I just see that in my mind, like, okay, how that could easily happen, right? It's not like they start off like, oh, okay, we're on a speedboat, we're going to take off in two separate directions. Right. It's just they slowly drift apart. I'm different in this area. I'm different in that area. I'm different in this area. And it ends up being like, wow, how we get here. So I think we have a couple of topics that kind of maybe help us talk about some of the reasons. I don't think this may be not all the reasons, but some of the reasons how couples get to that particular place. And one of them is career.
Okay. Career. Explain that.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the idea of that, somebody can put so much time into career where they don't necessarily have the ability or at least have the time, really the physical time to really spend with their significant other.
Yeah.
And work is like, can be a driving force for a lot of people.
Yeah. Like
it could be want to say, no, this defines me. So they put a lot of time into work. And we always think about like the big careers, whether, say you're a sports athlete, what they're always traveling, or you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you always got these, a lot of times being taken away, but that can happen in a regular job too. I'm saying regulars, like saying with the average American, regulars and average American is working, right? Your corporate job or whatever you're doing.
It can happen in any job because we all have goals. We all have something. If we're either in our chosen field and we want to excel, or we want to get into our chosen field, so we're working towards that. And then even if you're, if you have more of like a non-traditional job, hey, you might have a hustle. Hey, I'm trying to do this thing. So then you have your job, and then you have your hustle, the other thing that you're doing. So I think that any of those things can kind of pull you away from somebody that you care about and want to invest in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to throw a wrinkle in something just a little bit and put it's a career, but it's not really a career, but it's something that people spend a lot of time with. Okay. Going to church or being involved in church to the level that, the
Somebody
home
was
life,
like, what?
the home life is not getting the attention that it needs.
That's real talk.
And they hiding behind, you know what? Well, I'm doing it for God. But the God said take care of the house first.
Ooh-wee.
You know what I mean? You got to take
Yeah.
care of home before you take care. I mean, so like that can happen where, you know what? Somebody, well, you know, I'm just doing church thing.
Yeah. And what we're talking about here is balance. Because we're not saying if you don't volunteer at your house of worship, don't participate in the choir, don't be on the drama team, don't be an usher. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about how the home being unbalanced, where your focus is church and not your unity. Because we've talked about this before. You know, the foundation of the family is the foundation. I'm swimming in kind of deep water here.
Swim
but
in
it's
it.
important
Get the backstroke on.
that we recognize that that the church is part of the community, and we are, we can be involved in all of that, but we as a couple, we're the backbone of society. So if we don't have family things right, if family is crumbling, if the kids never see their dad and their mom is always at choir rehearsal and they never get that interaction, who do they look up to? A lot of people can have a lot of resentment saying, well, the church took my dad, or, we were always at church. And there's nothing necessarily bad with that. Those values at church need to also be demonstrated at home. You can't just be nice at church, be at church, and then come home and be wicked and evil and mean. But we also have to make sure that there's some sense of balance, that I'm not at church Monday through Friday, and then there again on Saturday for choir practice and rehearsal, and then Sunday for service 1, 2, and 3. And then my kids aren't getting quality time with your parents, and your spouse isn't getting face-to-face date time where we're not talking about church. Even if you're a pastor, you've got to recognize, you have to recognize your wife still needs you to be her husband.
Wow.
And those sacrifices you're willing to make together, like to say, okay, this is what we're going to commit to, but it just has to be a conversation that does not eliminate the unity in the home.
Yeah. I mean, I think balance is what you the key word that stuck in my mind when you said that. Is like, you know what, balance is needed.
Yeah.
Without balance, then you know what, things can get out of whack. Like you said, we're not against career, definitely not against church or anything like that. But like the balance, understanding that, you know what, hey, I got to be careful if I'm going too far in and check in with people and figure out, okay, what's going on. Particularly talking about, husband and wives or relationships that are, trying to build, just check in. We talked about that before, having check-in moments. Like, hey, you know what, everything good? Am I spending too much time at work? I'm working, trying to do it for us. Especially, us men, we got that bad. I'm doing it for us. I'm going to work, 50, 60 hours. Yeah. Then when I get home, you know what, just, give me my plate. If you are cooking, I'll pick up Panda Express, whatever you need, and I'm ready to shut it down. And not necessarily looking and say, okay, what about the home?
Yeah. And I think that is a constant evolving conversation. But there are some measures that you can put in place. Like you can say, okay, well, I travel a lot for work. I'm a truck driver, so I have to be gone a lot of the time. So when you come back in, what do? Do you have, okay, when I'm back in town, every time I leave and come back, we're going to have a date night? Or, hey, you know what? We're going to make sure that we talk when I'm traveling, at least once at lunch and at the end of the day, or however you structure it for what works with you and your spouse, but making sure that your career is not driving your life and leaving behind your spouse.
I think that's the solution to it, right? I think making sure your career, like what you just said, I'm going to repeat it as best I can, that it's not being the driving force of your life. And the relationship is an integral part of where you are trying to go as a unit. Because without that, then it's easy to get lost in the shuffle of busyness. And it happens so easy. It doesn't take a lot.
No.
It doesn't take a lot.
No, it doesn't.
So then we're going to look at, okay, topic number 2, right? We talked about career. One thing that can cause people to drift away.
Yeah.
And number 2, I think was a very big one, are kids.
Yeah. Oh.
And like the idea of kids, right? Because you know what? First of all, kids just take time, period, right? This even from, of course, as your little ones to now they're bigger, now they're in sports and activities and school activities. It's like, when does it end?
Doesn't.
I'm on this merry-go-round. I'm like, and I'm ready to get off. I need a minute to I'm dizzy. But like kids, like, I don't care. I'm good. And hold on, let's keep going, mom and dad. You know what? I want to go over to John's house. Now I want to go have swimming lessons. Now I want to go have basketball practice. Now we got soccer practice. Now we have gymnastics. It's like, okay.
Right.
And you take a deep breath, and like you don't have that.
Yeah.
Then like, okay, so where does relationship fit in at with your spouse?
Yeah. I think that when you have children, whether you got married and brought children into the relationship or you had children together or both, that the conversations are necessary on what each partner needs.
Right.
What that time commitment looks. Hey, you know what? This is what is important to me. This is what I value. This is what I value for myself. And this is what I value for us. Because if you're also not getting solo time, if you're not just getting time, some people need more than others. Now, you can't just, kind of take advantage of that. But you might say, you know what, I just like to work out for 45 minutes every morning. Yeah. Or, you know what, every night I like to take a bath. That's just my thing. I just need my own time just to take a bath. I only need about 20 minutes or a shower or whatever it is that you do. Hey, I just like an hour to watch my television show. I just like this show. This is what I do. And that can change over time. But recognizing from spouse to spouse, okay, my husband needs this time, just a little bit of time to himself. I'm going to take the kids and da-da-da, or vice versa. Because the kids, what can happen is both parents become so involved in the logistics of children. Who needs to go where? Who needs what? What did I cook? What did I forget? What was left at school? What project needs to be done? That your life can kind of become, like you said, this kind of merry-go-round of activities.
Right.
And then the relationship is sacrifice kind of at the altar of stuff. And so we want our kids to be engaged and to be involved and to be social, but you have to also make sure that your spouse and you are having more conversations that are deep and are intentional. I think maybe that's the word I'm looking for, is intentional time, intentional conversations, intentional solo time, so that your kids don't take over, because they will. And the more kids that you have, the more time that you have to be able to give.
Right. We've seen it where, right, we know couples and families where, you know what, the majority, I'm gonna go into the sports arena where, like, you know what, their whole life is built around sports. Yeah. Right. I'm missing family events. I'm missing any activity that's not dealing with sports. I'm gonna miss it because it's like that's where my focus is, right? And I think the issue comes where, okay, if both parents are on that same page, not a problem. When one says, you know what, I'm ready to get off of this, and they don't say it, or they kind of like give hints about it, like, you know what, but like they committed, right? You committed all this money, committed all this time, and like you can't just get off of it, right? Because you're like, oh, we invested. I done invested 3 years, in Susie doing gymnastics, and now you're talking about let's stop. We didn't spend $3,000 every year for the last 3 years. Yeah. Now we just gonna stop for a year while we want to build. So like then. A spouse says, okay, you know what, I'm ready to kind of pause because they feeling like, okay, we ain't spending much time together. And then what happens, right? It end up being, say, okay, one spouse says, okay, let's keep going. The other one says no. And that drift starts to happen. Yeah. That drift starts to happen.
And I think that can also happen when one spouse is more passionate or more knowledgeable about something than the other, as it pertains to children. Like maybe she was a cheerleader, so she knows a lot about gymnastics. The mom, that is. And so she wants her daughter to be in gymnastics or dance, or he might have known a lot about, baseball. So he wants him to be in baseball, or vice versa, and then the other spouse might just go along with it and not only not be as enthused about it, but it just not be their thing. Right. So I think that takes a certain amount of awareness and conversation. He can go out for baseball. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm going to go, and recognizing, okay, they're going to go, they're going to participate, but there should be some voice in the mind, this is not their thing. So as you're planning, oh man, they can do this and they can do this, they can do this in off season, recognizing, okay, they're going, but this is not their thing. And picking up on maybe those key words,
Right.
Because the kids are going to be passionate about it. And one other kind of conversation I want to bring into this, I recognize that there are blended families that are listening to us, and you might have children that are outside of the household, but also making sure that those relationships are prioritized, but you're not, again, sacrificing in the same way that you would for a kid that's in the home. You're not sacrificing the marriage where, okay, one spouse is going and the other one is staying back. Oh, I'm not, that's not my kid kind of mentality. No. That's not what you do. That will break up a marriage.
Right.
If this is his daughter or her son, you go together. You go
Yeah,
and you
it's
support
important.
together. You make the decision, okay, our daughter plays soccer or our son plays football. We're going to go and we're going to see these games. Maybe we don't make every game. The goal
Right.
is to try to be present as often as possible. But I just want to kind of reiterate, because sometimes in blended homes, when we're talking about kids and activities and quality time, one parent will go and the other one will resent that they left them there. And then you can have all these problems because you weren't a team, you weren't a unit. So he stays at, a little league game for 3 hours and she's upset at the house, or she goes to a gymnastics competition for a half a day and he's at the house. That can cause so many problems.
Man.
And I won't dig too deep into that. We might have to do a whole nother show on that, but that's that's a big thing when we're talking about staying together, knowing your spouse, knowing what's important, and recognizing that that's her son, whether they're in the house or not in the house, they care, and participating and spending quality time, whether it's birthday parties or it's sporting events. We just kind of got on the sports thing,
Right.
but whatever it is, making sure that we're having the conversations about logistics. Hey, they're coming this weekend. Okay, do we have a plan for this weekend? Oh, we're going to go pick her up or go pick him up at this time. So we're having those conversations because those two can pull the relationship apart.
No, you're 100% correct. In order to avoid, I think some breaks have to be given with the kids, right? We're a family unit, but each family member has to have those breaks with each other, right? Myself with the kids, myself with you, and say,
That's good.
you know what, let's pause what's going on and spend some one-on-one time, right? With all the busyness of life that's taking place, which is sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it gets to the point like, okay, hold on, we missing some things too. And without those breaks, and it's good. Okay, you know what, we have, my grandmother's having a birthday party. Let's go, I know we're supposed to be playing in a tournament or going to gymnastic practice or whatever have you. Let's take time, intentional time, and say, let's go spend time with this family, or let's go spend time with each other even.
Mm-hmm. Because you can get so absorbed and so consumed that you lose yourself, you lose your spouse in all of that.
Yep.
You can kind of just become something different. And sometimes that's why divorces happen, because you get so involved that you stop liking you. And then you hear things like, well, I don't like myself when I'm with you. Is that true? Are they rediscovering? Have they lost pieces of themselves because they didn't get to connect with you in the same way that they did way back when? So I think that could be something that happens when you're and we had a show about this already, but when you start ignoring those alarms, when you stop listening, not to just what's being said, but what's not being said.
Yeah.
So I think that's just something I wanted to point out.
Explain that. 'Cause you said something when I heard you said, I don't like myself when I'm with you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because that's I'm trying to let that sink in with that.
I think sometimes people drift so far from who they are or who they want to be, or who they once were in the course of the relationship, that they kind of can build some bitterness or build some resentment or build some frustration. And you're the closest thing, and they can kind of be blamed because they say, well, this is who I was when we first got together.
Right.
Or, man, when I used to do this. And the blame is attributed to before you. Like that's the small print.
Okay.
Before I was with you, I would always do this. Or before I was with you, I got to do this. And since I've been with you, this and this and this. So I no longer like who I am. I liked who I was back then. I like in my mind who I want to be. And so I think that maybe not that phrase specifically, but I think that a lot of times you can drift so far from you. You can drift so far from your spouse because you're engaged in so many things, and your spouse no longer knows you. They haven't encouraged you to be you because of busyness, because of stuff, because of kids, because of career, because of any number of things that you don't feel like yourself, and your spouse doesn't even recognize that because they've just gotten caught up in, hey, this is just how she is. This is just how he is. And you miss the person, you miss the evolution, you miss, hey, what have you been thinking about? What have you been seeing? How is work really going? Do you still like your job? Do you like
Right.
the career anymore?
Right.
Do you like that field? What would you do if you weren't doing this? Hey, what do you think about the kids coach? Do you think that they're evolving in other ways other than sports or art or music? What else do we need to do with our kids in terms of family time? Are
Right.
you getting enough one-on-one time with our daughter or with our son? Or are we getting enough blended family time? How can we maximize what you want to be? Has there been these are questions that I think are important when we're investing in our marriage and we're investing in the relationship. When you're talking about knowing your spouse, that's not just a one-time thing where you can say, I know who they are,
Yeah.
we're the best of friends. Are you really? Who are they? What are they thinking about?
Right.
So when somebody says, I don't like myself when I'm with you, it's really attributing to the distance that's happened, because you don't even know them anymore and they are struggling to remember themselves because there hasn't been connection.
That's good. That's good. No, thank you for that. I think that helped somebody, you know what I mean? Even helped me just understand, like I've heard that term before and I'm like, okay, how you like not like yourself? And like when you put it in that term, like, okay, you know what? I used to be able to do some things. Now I can't, or I don't, whatever have you on either end is part the same. Then I'm like, okay, I'm not really vibing with what we're going through and what we're doing, because I can't be me. So that's good.
That's what it is. It's, I can't be me and you don't know me, and I'd rather be away from this so that I can be comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah. So we have one more, right? And topic to kind of say, to frame up this like idea of, okay, how people drift apart in a relationship, whether it's 1 year, 5 years, 20 years. And the last one is when people internalize, right? And we kind of touched on a little bit with the other ones, like, hey, I don't necessarily tell you what's going on in my mind, or you don't check in. But, we talk about men internalize, but we know women internalize too.
True.
Right. And it's like, we end up, and I know for myself, and I internalize a lot. And like, it's hard to kind of get through to say, okay, what am I thinking? I'm going to give you kind of the first level, but maybe 10 levels to it. But you may only get the first 2 or 3. And it takes time for me to even kind of for myself to digest those multiple levels of really, what's going on, how I feel about it. Some people are really good at expressing their feelings, like really good.
Who are you talking about?
I'm not saying no names, but some people are really good at expressing their feelings and they have no problem with sharing it. Other people are just the opposite. And I think that can be a problematic. Like, okay, why don't you just say what's going on? Everybody's not like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's the cartoon, I think it's Shrek. Do you remember Shrek, the cartoon, where there's a scene in there, and I can't remember it exactly, but he's talking about being an onion and peeling back. Okay.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that there are a lot of people. Some people, it's like, okay, this is what it is, and then some people, it's layer by layer. And the truth is, everybody is layer by layer.
Yeah, to some degree.
It's just how much effort, how much energy is it going to take to pull back each layer? Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, like I said, how much effort it's going to take, right? Because I think you do have to, some people take more effort than others. You can easily say, okay, you know what? I asked them how they were. They didn't necessarily tell me. Well, it could be that, like you said, they take more effort than maybe what you were expecting or what you're even used to. At one point, they may have been open. Another point, now they're not. So it's always good to say, okay, hey, I mean, it's kind of, you got to pick up on different cues that, you know what, that your spouse or your partner has that you kind of, built and kind of understood over the years. If they're really doing something different, like, okay, hold on, now, why are you doing that now? Oh, just because. And they never answer like that. You got to ask about that. Okay, what do you mean? But because why? Which I'm not sure if you use that in the same sentence. Is that proper English? Because why?
You know what we do.
You know how because why? Because why? Because why? So, but like, you got to really peel, like you said, like the idea with the Shrek, and basically peeling back those layers of really what's going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have things that they will hold closer to themselves, like not necessarily be as willing to converse about. Right. And I think that the only danger in that is if you just take it for a face value.
You're listening to Fused with Tristan and Michael.